A special thank you to Mxolisi Masilela for sponsoring this episode of the Ink and Thing podcast.
Okay, Mr. Malcolm, I was actually asking you a question. If you were to write a theatre production, let's say about Judas, what would be your approach?
Well, I would start by saying that I am only interested in Christianity from a very particular perspective, number one. I was born a Jew from parents who came from Britain. And but on top of that, I was a Reformed Jew, which means I wasn't Orthodox, which meant that my relationship to religion is very complicated and mysterious. And I mostly think religion is responsible for a lot of violence and chaos. So I wouldn't want to write a play directly about Judas, but I'm interested, enormously interested, in the question of betrayal. And we could start with one of my favorite authors, John le Carre, who writes spy stories. And he died relatively recently, and his biographer was only allowed to write about le Carre's full life, his total life, including his sexual experiences after he was dead. And a book has come out recently, or relatively recently, that explains to their public that John le Carre, who was a brilliant writer of the most brilliant spy stories, including Tinker Tailor, Soldier Spy, The Perfect Spy, and many others, almost couldn't write a book or a set of books unless he had a new mistress. And so there is a link between secrets, betrayal, mistresses, wives, and creativity. So that's what interests me about betrayal.
Yeah.
In one of the plays that Junction Avenue Theatre Company made was called Tooth and Nail. And in that there was a nightclub singer who had a husband and a lover. And the husband was a white man, she was a white woman, and the lover was black. And we were playing on those games about conquest and love, and did the black lover want to conquer her like he's going to take back the land? I mean, that was part of the themes of that play. So betrayal is a very interesting subject, whether it be about politics or about sex or about even my betrayal of myself. I'm 74, I'm going to be 75 next year. I'm finally going to probably retire. And have I betrayed myself by entering into the world of administration instead of staying with arts?
That's the question.
That is a good one, eh?
Yeah.
I find myself discussing questions of HR and questions of payments and questions of how you establish a cafe and how you let people into Wits University and Park instead of making the next Sophiatown.
I think that's what a lot of artists are actually battling with at the current moment.
Well, I battle with it, not so much because I couldn't keep working. I could get jobs.
Yeah.
But they exhaust me too much.
Makes sense.
They take too much out of me. And I have very close friends who are about 3 or 4 years younger than me, or close associates, and they are working still and passionate. I just think, have I got the energy or the power to do it? I don't think so. But we can also discuss the 50-year history.
I threw that question to Mr. Malcolm Purkey to actually show you of sharp mind that he is. Mraitsu, ke go dumedise leina la me ke Kabelo SirGift Kgang Sedimonthole o tlhola malatsi a le mararo, meaning it is the 3rd of December. We're about to wrap up the year 2025. This is the Ink and Thing podcast, and I'm joined today by internationally renowned playwright who wears so many hats, who goes by the name Malcolm Purkey. Mr. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining me.
It's only a pleasure. I'm in awe of the new generation.
Yeah. I hope you're not judging us too harshly, because when one is looking at the amount of work that your generation has put in, we judge ourselves harshly because we are overly distracted.
Okay, here's the point. We were, in the most perverse way, lucky.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. I matriculated in 1968, if you can even think of those years. I got to Wits in 1970. I found a whole lot of colleagues and partners and artists, and I found some great teachers, including someone like Robert McLaren, who founded Workshop 71, otherwise known as Mshengu Shabalala. And we had a great condition for our artistic work.
Yeah.
Apartheid. Do you understand how mad that is? But because we had a single focus, and we understood how rotten apartheid was and how much it damaged people, it was paradoxically extraordinary. It was an extraordinary condition of fire for lovely, lovely work.
You've always been an ally to the black community, especially in your theatre works. But I'm also aware that you failed the Sesotho. So when I opened this, when I did the introduction of the podcast, I said Sedimuntule Othola Malatsi Ale Mararo, which means that it's the 3rd of December, but it's not Sesotho, it's Setswana. So I was actually thinking while I was actually rehearsing that in my head of the translation. Can you guess what does that mean, Sedimuntule?
I would hate to try, but let me tell you, since you've done your homework and found out I failed Sesotho, right? I once was on a panel as a student with 300 students in front of me. And on the panel was Nadine Gordner, Ankie Kroch, maybe a poet, and maybe some other famous people, and me. And I was able to say to the students, I have done English one, I've done Afrikaans one, I've done ancient Greek one, I've done Sesotho one, and failed them all.
Yeah.
Now, you can imagine how they laughed. And that was my point, was that I love the way in which humor is constructed.
Yeah.
And especially if it's self-deprecatory, meaning it's shocking that I failed all those subjects. I was supposed to be a scholar.
Yeah.
But I was not ready for university. And also, I was having far too much fun making new theatre.
You get to laugh at yourself.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a great believer in the Brecht line, which I saw on a book. I've never found out the root. I saw it on the cover of a Brecht book.
What does it say?
And it said, a theatre that you cannot laugh in is a theatre to be laughed at.
Oh.
Exactly. So I'm a great believer in the power of laughter.
Yeah.
You can cheat many other emotions in the theatre, but you can't make people fake laugh. Either they laugh or they don't laugh. And if your jokes don't work, you're damned. I want to tell you something else about this. In Fugard's play, Fugard Carnian and Shauna's play, The Island, which I absolutely love, and actually directed a production at Wits with 2 students who then were so good we went touring the world. There's a couple of lines in the Fugard play about how you have to hit people with humor at the beginning and then hit them with your message at the end. And that was a model for a lot of our plays.
So you're using humor in a way of disarming people.
Correct.
And then while we are relaxing, you come with the punch.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, going back to what I was saying, Sedimuntole, I don't know what's the official translation, but it sounds like a prayer or a plea, meaning divinity, please unburden me. Sedimuntole. So I find that beautiful. Although you failed the Sesotho, one thing that I admire when I'm reading your bio is the fact that you made sure that you went to different institution to actually sharpen your skill. You started with Wits. From Wits, you went to is it a university in New York?
In upstate New York.
Yeah.
I went to a place called Binghamton, which was one of the state systems. I loved the idea that I could go and study in New York, but I didn't realize that university was 5 hours from New York proper.
Oh.
And also I got myself a Fulbright scholarship.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to be in New York, of course. But later, because I'm like that, I found a way to connect to NYU, the great New York university, and I hosted students for about 10 years, a delegation of staff and students. Every January, February, we'd bring out students here. We'd organize tours and talks. And so I found my way back into NYU as a I suppose, a professor at Wits.
Yeah, and then you went to study film in Britain. I'm just interested and curious to know about your love for academics. Where does that come from? Because I think too many people, if they were in your shoes, maybe they had that qualification from vets, although you consider it to be a privilege. But I would imagine somebody would become complacent and they consider themselves that I now have all the knowledge and the information that one needs to succeed in this industry. But however, you pushed yourself further. Can we talk about your passion for that?
Well, let me say that somewhere along the line, when I started running workshops with Junction Avenue, and even before that, when there were two other projects that I worked on, it was quite clear to me that I was a teacher and a leader. I could make things happen. I also learned in those groups how to be very clear in communication. If you're working with multiple actors, some of whom have never trained, who all have multiple languages, some can't even speak to each other because someone is Zulu and someone is Sesotho, whatever. It taught me to work very clearly, but also with a great ability to reach into people and try and bring out their best. So that's like an academic project. It's a teaching project. But the other thing is, I think I prefer to call myself a public intellectual, a word I learned much later.
Yeah.
I think that we cannot have work that doesn't have an underpinning of theory and thought and writing. Now, we can't let it damage the work. And often intellectual stuff does damage creative arts.
Oh.
But if you use it properly, all the greatest artists are extremely informed, whether they've been to university or not. I mean, it's interesting to me, and it was always interesting to me, because I married a young woman whose father was deeply involved in that older generation of intellectuals. So there was Nadine Gordimer, I knew her quite well. There was Philip Stein. There was Barney Simon and Athol Fugard.
Yeah.
4 great powers. Not one of them completed a university degree. And they were obviously aware that the university degrees were not useful to them. But my goodness, you think they didn't read everything and anything that existed out there? So there's lessons in there somewhere. It's harder these days because you wouldn't get the opportunities you get unless you are formally educated.
Yeah.
But actually in Junction Avenue and before that in Workshop 71, the actors were trained as almost like Shakespearean actors. You train on the job. You're in there as a sort of an intern as you go up the ranks, and then you end up like Ramula Macheni.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've had the opportunity to do something and was probably called by somebody to come and do something, and the paper became a hindrance between me and that thing.
Yeah,
so
that's a problem for us.
Because you can have all the skills that you have. You can be educated, although not in an orthodox way, but that paper works like a dom pass.
Yeah. It's really sad, but I always used to say to my students, you got to finish no matter what. And I would happily make space for them. If they got a job somewhere else, I'd say come back next year and finish or whatever. Unlike some of the other professors who really wanted to be hardcore. But the lesson there was that I also said you have to have what I call 2 competencies, a double competency. What does that mean? It means you can't just be an actor. You have to be an actor and a writer, or a writer and a director, or a writer and a business manager, which is more and more important. People have to do elements of business here because we have to often run our own businesses.
Speaking of that, you spoke about the difficulty of having to do admin and having to create work. You wear so many hats. Can you tell us what are those hats that you are wearing? Or some of them, probably you've took them off some years ago, but I also want to know what is your favorite hat to wear?
Well, I won't say my favorite hat, but let me start by saying when people ask me about my biography, if you like, I say I've had 4 big lives. So I started studying, of course, and then I started teaching in drama in 1983 at Wits, and I taught for 20 years. So that was hat number 1. Then I was recruited in a very interesting and special way, and we can discuss that, to the Market Theatre as artistic director.
Yeah.
in spite of being a white male over 50, and that's an interesting conversation to have. I then was recruited to AFTA, they were establishing a deanship, and they asked if I'd be their first dean. And I went to AFTA as a dean. So those are 3 of the lives that I've led. Then my 4th big life was to be running Junction Avenue from 1976 until 1999. Or more technically, I was the first writer and director of most of the projects. Although when I went away to study, others took over and so on. Now my 5th life, which is very strange, is I've been brought back to Wits to kick the theatre around and try and make it work again.
Yeah.
I was on a 1-year contract. They've extended for 2. I will retire at the end of June next year from this bureaucratic life. They all work together. If I'm truthful, most of them are in the public sector. Wits is public, the market was public. I'm back at Wits. Junction Avenue was, who knows what it was. It was a collective that came together, made a project, earned some money, broke apart again. So when I went to AFTA, it was a big shock. It was the first time I worked in the private sector. It was the first time I had a boss who was really, very close above my head.
Yeah.
And a very demanding boss who had a very clear idea about the syllabus. And my job was to simply implement. That's not really my style. But I did it for 10 years.
Yeah.
But I did develop the writing program. They were very generous, and they allowed me to travel to America for a year on a special project, and they supported me on that in that year. So I've had a very complex and interesting life. Somewhere along the line, I learned how to manage. So when Sophiatown opened at the Market Theatre in February of 1986, in the small theatre, not the big one, very soon it was clear it was a smash hit, and it became, it had seasons of, I think 6 seasons that year in the main theatre. Manny Manham came to me and said, we want to do it again, but we can't do it in the small theatre anymore. Move it to the big theatre. I was very anxious about that because, it was an intimate play in my view. But between William Kentridge and Sarah Roberts, they designed a beautiful set that was large and yet intimate at the same time.
Oh.
So that was interesting. And the point was, when we went, we were then picked up for I think a 3-month tour to Europe. We played in Zurich in a tent with 1,000 seats. We went to Berlin. I think we had our premiere at 11:30 in the evening and played until 3 and then went for supper. What madness is that? And then to Italy, where everybody loves to dress and can't really understand much English. And I was the manager, and I was a bad manager. And I was also trying to be the artistic director and hold everything together. So then I learned no more managing for those tours. For me, I've got to find others. Angus Gibson did one, Stephen Sack did one. We were drawing on the company and who was in the company.
Yeah.
And everybody learned lots as we went on the road. But I then was a founder member of PAWE, the Performing Arts Workers Equity, which was really interesting because it was at the height of apartheid. It was at the time of 86, 87, 88, the tough times. I'm not even sure when we started. And somehow we managed to structure a union that straddled the ideological divide between black consciousness and the UDF. And that union had people like Maish Maponya involved, Ramula Mkheni, myself, John Carney, Vanessa Cook, Dan Robertson. And the issue was that the great success, I think, was that we were able to straddle that ideological divide that was useful and valuable to the ordinary actors. And for a while, PAWE was very strong. In fact, it really started getting less strong when it joined with the music union. And when we started having professionals who ran the union. And it was no longer run out of passion, it was run out of a bureaucratic process. So I suppose all of that was also about learning.
Yeah.
And when I went to the Market Theatre, I was part of a 3-person team. Sibongiseni Mkhize was the CEO. He was not even, I think he was not even 35. And we had a brilliant woman who was our finance director, and she came from running an insurance company. So can you imagine? We used to make a joke.
Yeah.
I went from Wits to the Market, and my salary doubled.
Yeah.
She came from this insurance company to the Market, and her salary halved.
Oh.
But But Sibongiseni was brilliant, and when I started having to deal with something like the Companies Act and the PMFA and all of those documents that govern who we are, even though I was the artistic director, I was also in the senior management team, so I learned a huge amount in that period.
And you also guys doubled the revenue of the market.
Doubled the revenue and the footfall.
Yeah.
And I made some interesting interventions. When I arrived, the first thing I noticed, that plays never had their full season, because if no audience came, they just cancel the show. Or if there was 20 in the audience, they'd cancel the show. I said, we cannot cancel any shows, because we have to establish the Market Theatre as a brand, as a place to go, no matter. And as it is now, and in my time, people started saying, what's on at the Market, and they'll just go. So if you've got 3 venues and you keep 2 of them full all the time at any one point, then audiences get used to the idea that they won't be disappointed. So what I did is I thought, okay, so I've got empty houses, and I've got people cancelling the shows, the management, and I've got a social responsibility program that I have to start. So what I did is I got 30 people in from the community to every show, so that no one would ever cancel. And that's how I managed to solve that crisis. But the other point is, I'm a great believer in theatre that's compelling, brilliant, challenging, perverse, lovely, funny, dark. So what was my very first project? Green Man Flashing, which is Mike van Kraan's account of how a great ANC person is accused of rape, but he can't be charged because he's too important in KwaZulu-Natal, because he's solving the civil war there. So that was my very first project, which I had to fight the Joburg Theatre for, because they had the rights. But we understood, both of us, both sides of that conversation, that Green Man Flashing was the one for us and not for the Joburg Theatre, at least as it was then run.
Yeah.
The second project, or the third project, was, of course, Paul Grootboom. And if you've got, plays set in Hillbrow with brothels and young girls who are being abused by judges and semi-naked men floating around, who knows? But my job was always to work out, is this play authentic and valuable, even if it is ugly beyond ugly, or powerful and rude beyond powerful and rude? And so the houses became full.
Yeah.
And then we just kept on that tradition. You make your plays compelling. You make sure they fulfill all those obligations.
I was looking for a phrase that you said at some point about making sure that there was no night that was what?
Empty. It's Manny Manham's phrase.
Yeah, what did he say?
No dark night.
No dark night.
Never have a dark night.
Oh.
Now, if you've got 3 theatres and, say, 50 weeks a year to play, it's a big challenge. But it's the only way.
I love the idea, because it also meant, although it served the audience, but I'd like to believe that it served the creatives as well, because
it made
they
work.
kept on working.
Manny was a great teacher, Manny Manham, and he was a brilliant, brilliant producer and visionary for the theatre. And the partnership between Manny Manham and Barney Simon was electric, because Barney was like some sage halfway on his journey to God, and Manny Manham understood the problem of money and the problem of art and the problem of contracts. And so not only did he talk about the dark night, no dark night, which is a powerful, powerful thing, he said your job is always to extend the life of the play, if you can, because it gives work to actors. The current tendency to reduce the seasons to 3 weeks, 2 weeks, if I was back in these places, I'd be pushing for 5 weeks again.
Yeah.
And even if I had to paper, I'd bring in, because then at least the actors are getting work, and then the audiences are building. Within 1 week if the audiences are going to build or not. Yeah. And if they don't, you accept you're just going to muddle on and hope for the best. But mostly, we were doubling. We did what we had tried to do, which is extend the life of all the plays that came.
I wanted to ask you about theatre then versus theatre now. But before I do that, I want to take you way back. You wrote what somebody would call an antithesis to Waiting for Godot.
That is correct.
And that was you branching into theatre, you branching into being a playwright. What do you make of that when you look back compared to right now where you are in your career?
Well, I can say, if I go back even a bit further back, I was asked by the mother of a friend of mine if I wouldn't please be one of the males in their amateur dramatic society.
Mm-hmm.
They needed one to play in a production of, God, you see, my brain is definitely going, but I played Wickham,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an adaptation of a novel that's very famous. Someone will tell you what it is. I can't remember this minute. It's not Sense and Sensibility, which was also an extraordinary piece of work that Emma Thompson made. It's in the same sort of camp, transforming novels into plays or film. So I played this, and I loved the idea of being in this theatre. It was really exciting for me. And my most important technique was that I learned to raise one eyebrow.
Oh,
That was my acting
I see.
technique. I mean, that's what I thought acting was.
Yeah.
You know, pouncing around, posing and making my eyebrow go up. So that was one strand of my life that started emerging in my late teens.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I was already in university. But then what happened is that I was in English 1, or maybe in the second attempt, I can't remember. But I suspect, no, it was probably in the very first year that I was there. A very brilliant teacher with very long red nails, taught Waiting for Godot. And Waiting for Godot has to be the most powerful threat as a play to our thinking and our imagination. It is, as you know, a play about two tramps who are waiting for Godot. You know, it's kind of waiting for a god, someone to save their lives.
Yeah.
And they never find that person. So I thought, well, what happens if these two tramps go to heaven and finally find their way there? Is the success better than the waiting? Is the success better than the journey? These are big questions. And I wrote this play. It was called Sequel to Jesu. We staged it in the Great Hall at Wits, and unexpectedly it touched something in people. We got one excellent review from one of the professors. Students came and watched, and then it played in Cape Town in a New Sass festival. Then a version of it ended up at the Royal Court upstairs in a student festival in London. And even though I was a terrible student and not very nice to the English department, they gave me 500 Rand to buy an air ticket and go and watch it. So that was also interesting, because how you learn in a university and what you learn in a university and when you learn was a mystery. So I didn't expect that something inside me would be touched and I would write this play. But I did. And then I thought, oh, God, I'm a writer. Then I can drop out and I can go to Britain and find out who I am and all of that. It's a long story, that part, which I don't think we want to go into right now. But my parents were both British and my grandparents were from Russia or Lithuania or somewhere out there. I much later found out that my grandfather came from the heart of Poland. So I'm Polish, I'm British, I'm a big fat mix. And once I started writing, my second plays are always weaker. I wrote a play called Books. It was about a tramp and books and writing and love affairs, and it wasn't very successful. But it still was a play. Then I bumped into Workshop 71, and that was just like a little wonderful blow to the head, because then I saw what groups together can do. I remember very clearly it was in the Box Theatre, which was built by me. But it probably wasn't the Box Theatre yet. It was one of those rooms in the old Student Union. And I think they did a play called Unoslimela. It might have been one of the first ones, but I don't remember which one it was. What I do remember is Ramulao coming out with the troupe into the foyer, because part of the activity was to engage the audience in a community activity. And they danced and sang songs from there and from the struggle, from wherever. But Ramulao, it's mad, but he used to love to roll his stomach.
Yeah.
And his whole stomach could roll. And I just looked at this and I thought, who is this person? And he became my theatre brother for right until he died. How many ever years ago?
Rest in peace.
Eish, what a story, though. I mean, too much for me to even cope with, because so many shocks in different directions.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about him, and also I don't remember who else. I was just thinking about the idea of so many people that you've actually worked with, either in film or in theatre. So many of them have passed away. So I was just wondering in my head, what do you make of it? Like to have lived long, to have buried your friends.
Death is a horror. Death is a mystery. They sometimes say death is a great leveler, but I don't know what to say about it. But Sibongile Khumalo was in Marabi, early days.
Oh.
Ramulao, Arthur Molepo, Spiwe Khumalo. So Ramulao has passed, Sibongile has passed, Spiwe Khumalo passed much too early.
Yeah.
Even Ramulao much too early. Gladys Mutlali's passed. So
you've worked with him as well.
I worked with him, yes.
Yeah.
And he was a great talent. So I don't know what to make of it. We just muddle on.
Yeah, I think it's giving Waiting for Godot
Special meaning.
Yeah.
No, look.
Because
I'm not an atheist.
Yeah.
Meaning, I think atheists are like religious people. They believe fervently there's no God.
They're not willing to explore other ideas.
Yeah, my version is that God is in everything.
Yeah.
God holds the table together. It's the electrons.
Yeah.
The mystery of the soul. These are all great mysteries. And they are good sources for theatre thinking.
I want to speak about a show that is special to me. But also, I believe that this particular show is a symbol of your longevity because of the show has a longevity on its own. I'm talking about Sophia Town, a very, very brilliant show. And I heard you saying that it was actually a work of 6 months improvisation. So can you talk about how did the show come about?
Oh, well, if we go back in history, before the show before we started work on that project, we had done The Fantastical History of a Useless Man, which was about history in South Africa from 1652, which we called the invasion, to the 1976 uprisings. That was the period that we covered. And it was half carnival, it was half clown show, and it was half very serious. It was about an individual white English-speaking South African who believes in the struggle and wants the revolution, but doesn't have the courage or the stupidity to pick up an AK-47. So that was the heart of that show. And it was very successful. And I suppose it was very successful because, there were very brilliant people who helped to make it. And it was very witty, but it was also very political. And it played many seasons. But we knew that if we were an all-white company, we would not have a long life. So we were watching Workshop 71, and Workshop 71, suddenly some of their members found themselves in exile. So we went to Ramulao, Arthur and Spiwe and said, join us. So for our second big project, it was called Landlords and Rotgut, and that was about the 1900s. It was about the relationship between mining, newspapers and illegal booze. And it's based on Charles van Onsselen's research. So we're very interested in the relationship of hidden history, special kind of writing, the history workshop, and theatre. So after that, the next play we did, there were some plays that were created when I was away, Security and Dikicheneng, for example. But the next play we did on the history that we were tracking was the 30s, based on Modikwe Dakobi's book called Marabi Dance. We did the play called Marabi. And Arthur Molepo is about to open it.
Yeah, so he's bringing it back.
So it's going to be very interesting because it had 2 seasons at the market. It toured in a version that I edited and created quite extensively in America and Britain and UK. And then it's never been published, and it's because there's too many versions. So if Arthur's play is a success, whatever kind of success, my version is we should publish Marabi as the edited version. My brother's also working on it in Britain. So we'll get an edited version, a text that could be played. But then at the back, we can put in all the deviations.
Okay.
So like an educational project again. We haven't tested this yet, but we could. So we're working our way through. 1930 is about the destruction of Doornfontein, and it's about young lovers, and it's about fathers, and there's Jewish people behind the scenes somewhere running the chemist shop or whatever they usually do. So it plays into our interests. So we knew we were going to deal with the 50s, and we knew that the big issues of the 50s, there were 2. One was the Freedom Charter, the Congress of the People, and the other was the destruction of Sophiatown.
Oh.
So we knew those two things, but we didn't know what story to tell. And we were struggling to find the story because you've got to find a hook. And one day I read the article, the account of the emergence of Drum magazine and its history and the journalists. And in that article, it says two journalists, Nat Nakaza and Louis Nkosi, put an article in the Star newspaper asking for a Jewish girl to come and live with them. And the writer of that book then says she was very strange looking. She looked like she was drawn through a hole like a wire. Now, those are very curious things. Number one, why do these black journalists put an advert in the paper like that? So there's a whole story behind that. It's a story about the relationship between blacks and Jews. It's a story about the relationship between progressive Jews like the famous communists. It's a story about the people who founded the mines. It's a story about black journalists finding their own way and curious. So all of that impact is inside that funny little advert. So we decided we wouldn't find out who actually went, although there were two candidates, Molly Seftel, an actress, and maybe Nadine Gordimer. But we think that someone did go. But it was a brilliant story for us. Because if a Jewish girl who's innocent goes to a door and knocks on it and says, "Hello, I'm here," and this household says, "Who the hell are you? What do you want? You mad?" And then Jakes comes out and says, "Oh, no, I want her." Why? Well, I can write stories. Maybe I can have sex. I don't know. So that was the core to the play. But the beautiful thing about that is, on the one hand, is the ton of history and a ton of culture around what Sophiatown was, who was living there, who walked there, who didn't walk, who played there, what did the gangs do. Stories like asking a singer to sing the same song over 20 times because you're part of the American gang. What a story. Even if it's not true, it doesn't matter. So we set to work on that idea because what we have is at the heart of that is a cultural clash where both sides are innocent of the other side because of apartheid. So both sides have to explain themselves to each other. Play material. It's very fashionable at the moment from some of the Africanists to say that there's some profound weakness if you have to have a white male running a group where a white Jewish girl goes into a community and animates. Well, it's a 40-year-old play and it's some national set work. And as I told you a little while ago, we have sold 1 million copies.
Can you imagine that?
I mean, it's actually, I got this message about a week ago. So we had it published by Wits University Press. It's doing very, very well. But in 2014, it became a national set work for grade 11 for further applied language, or whatever they call them, additional language. So in year one, we sold 600,000 copies.
Oh.
And I personally, I'm one of 14 writers, but I have a 30% share. I got 800,000 rand. I thought, oh my God, artists don't do this.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm a very lucky person, and so is the group, because artists don't make money. You know that we worked for 10 years in Junction Avenue before anybody got paid. We used to work at night. We had other jobs. So back to your question. What we do is we take the topics and the ideas into a workshop, which in our case lasted 6 months, from about June to December. We were lucky enough to use Witz's facilities, where they were very generous in those days. We used to make all our plays on the 8th floor of University Corner. And we would gather 3 times a week, 14 of us, including Ramulao, Arthur Molepo, Spiwa Kamalas, Doreen Mazibuko, Gladys Butlali, Angus Gibson, William Kentridge, Ruth Sack, Pippa Stein, my late wife, and Patrick. I'm missing a few names. Apologies.
Patrick Shiley. Yeah.
No, he wasn't in the original group.
Okay.
So Tessa Spargo now lives in America. So and Sarah Roberts, the brilliant designer. So we had such great material. I mean, one of the improvisations was absolutely revelatory. We told the girl, knock on the door, And when they open the door, you say, the imaginary door, say, hello, my name is Ruth Golden. I've come to stay. And everybody goes, they improvise what their responses could be. Ramolau comes out and he looks at her and he says, Umang. She goes, huh? He says, who you? Wie's jy? And she says, Ruth Golden. And Ramolau went into what I call an opera. 1 is for king, 2 is for monkey, 3 is for seawater, all the way to 36.
Yeah.
Because he knew his Farfi. He was in Farfi. He'd run in Farfi, unusual for males to run, but he was young.
So that's how the Farfi character was born.
That's how the Farfi character was
sorry, I got too excited.
Yes, but you're allowed to be excited because it was wonderful. Because, I knew about Farfi in the sense that I lived in Orange Grove. And once a week, a big Cadillac would come round and the gong was driving, excuse my slang, but there was a Chinaman who was driving.
Yeah, we call it Machaina.
Yeah, Machaina, right? And all the maids of the street would go and something would be going on. And I knew it was important, and I knew it was probably illegal, but it was fascinating. And only much later did I find out 36 numbers. But as I say in the play, there are 36 numbers, but you can only choose 30 or something. And therefore the Chinaman always wins.
Yeah.
And it was what was so beautiful about that opera that Ramolau made for us was that we could talk about her long hair and link it to a number. We could talk about bees as trouble. And so we wove the mythology of numbers into the play. And it was great. We could play with any numbers. Are you a whore, amajuba, whatever, a pigeon, a slechte vrou, or are you a young girl? Are you a woman with long hair? And every number, not all of them, but we used the numbers to play games through the play. Yeah. The making of the play. And then, of course, the other big one was, so you're Jewish. What does that mean? Oh, well, it's not really religious. I mean, the only big difference, if you want to know what the big difference is, that students don't fully understand when they see or read the play. Jews in Yeovil.
Oh.
Because Yeovil has become such a black, all African city.
Yeah.
And there we were talking about the Jews in Yeovil and the blacks in Sophiatown. And that strange dynamic
doesn't register.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of jokes that are absolutely fabulous that the contemporary audience don't get. Not that I can remember which ones. Well, references to movies, things like that.
Yeah, it's one of the beautiful shows. I got the privilege to actually watch it when it was concurrently running in the Market Theatre. And I think Obris Khabi was also doing his version in State Theatre in Pretoria.
So look how interesting that was. Everybody says you cannot run the same play in 2 venues at the same time.
Well, that was the first I
know. In fact, it's the only time. But I decided, why not? It's a test. Will we get Joburg audiences here and Pretoria audiences there? And guess what? Both sold out.
Yeah.
And I was doing the one in Joburg. It was the last time I did it. And Aubrey was doing the new one in State Theatre, his version.
I was working at the Market Theatres in Asha. We had almost full night, almost every day. I think by the time the show came to an end, almost all the crew, including the people who were doing sound, people who were doing stage manager, I'm sure everybody knew line by line because the duration of the show is also very long.
Yeah,
I think it takes about
2 hours and 30 minutes, which is too long actually.
Yeah.
But it was great in its time. So in the 80s when it opened, people had much more generosity of spirit. Something about the struggle, something about the fire meant people had a hunger to see stuff and were willing to sit. In fact, they still sit. I mean, I went to watch Aubrey's show for 2 hours now, 2.5, straight through. And when I was in Germany, I mean, there's hardly a show that's under 5 hours long. But back to the question of 2 places, I was always willing to take risks. The conventional wisdom is no one puts on a show and the same show somewhere else at the same time. It was fun.
Oh, man. How did it become part of the syllabus? Because I remember going home, I think around 20, I don't remember which year was it. Then I found my little sister's notebooks, and then there was Sophiatown there, and I had to ask her, what do you know about Charlie Mingus? And she was like, no, this is actually part of our syllabus in school. I was like, wait, what do you mean? How did it come about? it being part of the
well, it was 2014.
the curriculum. Yeah.
So you could say it's already been around since 86. I can't
Yeah.
even do the maths. 86, 96, 106, 116. So it was almost 20-something years in the world. And every time it played, which wasn't very often, when I brought it back, when Aubrey did it, it was doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose it was noticed by educators as a very rich and interesting text for scholars. And then the woman who was the editor at Macmillan, her name is Aviva Spector, she came to see me, one of my ex-students, and she said, would I be interested in helping to develop an educational version? Educational version. And you know, the thing about that is that she said, you know, it can't be fully rude.
Yeah.
So I think we made one change. We took out the word that we shouldn't be saying even here. And
it was probably said by Charlie.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, no, yeah, well, it was more like Mingus. You know?
Yeah.
But the issue was that, okay, I accepted that. Then they said that they had to edit the tsotsita.
Oh.
I said, are you mad?
No.
That's the very heart of the play.
Yeah.
It's a language game. And the problem of language and translation and Hebrew and prayer and everything else. Mm-hmm. I mean, surely we love Ramola's prayer. Please, God, don't make me too drunk tonight. Amen. Yeah. Exactly. And you know how they used to laugh? Mm-hmm. They don't laugh so much anymore.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting? But also Ramola had a brilliant performative quality. So he could make that perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it's iambic pentameter. Please, God, don't make me too drunk tonight. Amen. That's 2 beats too extra.
Uh-huh.
But still, I mean, the basic line is, God, don't, please, God, don't make me too drunk tonight. Mm-hmm. So that's 9 syllables. I mean, so somewhere between 9 and 12 syllables, it's playing almost like a Shakespeare line. Mm-hmm. And if you play it right, it kills the audience because they don't expect him to say that.
Yeah.
That's not a prayer. And then the idea that she opens the door for Elijah to come in, the spirit of Elijah. Mm-hmm. What do you mean, ghosts?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about ancestors and we're talking about ghosts. In fact, ancestors is the big topic of the contemporary moment in education. Mm-hmm. Really very difficult for me to fully understand.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we work for 6 months. I then go away and I write the text. For about 6 weeks. In other words, an edited and captured version. Then we go to rehearsal for 6 weeks, and then we have 3 or 4 previews at the Market Theatre. Within 2 performances, I know I've got to take 2 scenes and make them one. Mm-hmm. And unusually for me, because I'm a scaredy cat, I did it. And at the back, there were instructions for the actor. When you get to this word, you've got to jump to that word.
Oh.
And I made it possible. And that's how the text emerged in this form.
Makes sense.
Then what happened is on day, I think that was on day 1 or 2, we have a full house. We don't know where they're coming from. For a preview. Mm-hmm. Turns out they're all Sapphire Town ex-Sapphire Towners. And somehow they've got the word and they're coming.
Yeah.
And they gave us a standing ovation for 20 minutes or something. And we just knew that we had something. It was like the blessing of the ancestors, really, on this play that Barney Simon called it a picnic or a party because there's too much dancing and singing.
Yeah.
Another poet of note says that whiteys should not be involved in making these things.
Oh.
But in fact, the one thing I didn't like of what you've said so far is I'm not an ally for anybody.
Oh, okay.
I'm in it.
You're in it. I love that.
Well, it's important.
Can I give you a fist bump?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you to be an ally means that you're somewhere on the side of something and you're lending your weight and your money and your intellect and your talent. When people used to ask me, why is a white male making these plays? I said, because I love it for myself. Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Well, it's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
I'm born and bred here. The Constitution, announces space for us. The Constitution announces space for free expression. So in the Market Theatre, I started working out what are the principles for work. Mm-hmm. One of them was the balance between freedom of expression and some kind of a honouring of the Constitution. So not too much. You can't have freedom that is taking license. So we could do plays like Paul Grootboom's plays, because I had decided in my head they weren't hate speech or they weren't hate performance. They were just telling the truth of some of our life.
Yeah.
So there was a play called Death of a Colonialist. I don't know if you ever saw it.
No.
But it was a lovely, lovely play about a history teacher, a white male, working in the Eastern Cape in Grahamstown, as it was then called, in one of these private schools, and his job is to teach European history.
Oh.
But he hates it, and he wants to teach Xhosa history. But he wants to teach it as he understands it. And he thinks of it as a blood cult, whatever that may mean. I suspect it means, the painting of the face, the relationship with animals and cows and bulls. And I looked at this play and I read it, and we had readings at the table. Some people said it was racist.
Yeah.
And even I sent it to another artistic director, and that person said, well, it seems racist to me. But then I said, I'm going to get a very big, lovely actor who died recently, Jamie Bartlett, to play the lead.
Yeah.
Oh, then it's not racist.
Yeah.
Because he's strong enough to carry it. But that's a curious moment in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you have a large personality as an actor, somehow it will transcend those questions. But
It's funny because we considered him a black person. I don't know how.
okay, I understand what you mean. But here's the point.
Yeah.
I decided after quite a lot of readings and examination of the worlds that it wasn't racist. It was about race. That's a very important distinction. Because at the end, he locks himself in the classroom and he won't let the principal in. He takes off his shirt, he covers himself in red, and he's here to tell people the truth.
Yeah.
Now, history teachers, who are white, supposed to tell us about Xhosa history, I don't
Yeah.
know. But it doesn't matter. It provokes questions. Full houses. No one came to me and said, what the hell are you doing? Maybe one or two fringe Africanists. But what I'm saying, I'm being rude about some people now because there's a hardcore group emerging and in these difficult days.
Yeah.
And also the students don't fully yet know what they're going to make. That's when I started by saying apartheid was a terrible and paradoxical pleasure because it was such a clear monster to deal with.
Yeah.
What do we deal with now?
Yeah, too many nuances, intersectionalities. There's a whole lot of things.
Yeah.
But also, I wanted to ask you, Malcolm, do you think theatre is becoming less potent, or do we have an audience that is desensitized?
Well, there's been some great shows at the Market Theatre. So the Market Theatre seems to be back on track. I think after me it was James's turn, and James had a very particular way of dealing with things.
Yeah.
My version was that your job as an artistic director is to make opportunities for a lot of others. And one of my phrases when I entered the market, which I had on my forehead backwards in invisible ink, dedicated to imperfection.
Oh, I love that.
Well, it's about, when John Carney was on the board, he was always saying, oh, that play's not good enough. That play. And I said, there's no perfect play. There was never a perfect play. So you have to look for the best imperfect play.
Yeah.
So I think at the moment we're finding our way into a new territory. The great challenges of the last 50 years are changing. They're still there, but they're changing. So what are the current challenges? Obviously gender questions. The war between men and women, which is always one of my personal themes anyway. I think it's a fascinating topic. The question of African traditional belief versus urbanity. Yeah. Or African traditional versus Christianity, which is a big tension.
Yeah.
Much more use of what we'll call easy cultural reference. Now, I say that with care, but certain kinds of ways of taking historical cultures or culture, such as certain sounds or certain prayers or certain ways, which I've done myself. I mean, Marabi had an Inyanga in there, shaking and doing all of those funny things just because it was fascinating to us.
Yeah.
And putting it on the stage had a certain meaning. But I wouldn't like to be young at the moment because I don't think I'd know what to make.
Yeah. I think also we sometimes struggle with intent, because I remember I think one film director in the United States, I think it's Quentin Tarantino. There was also a little bit of backlash when he was doing a movie called Django Unchained because of the language. It was like, this character is actually depicting a racist person, you know. So they were like, you keep on doing this. What are you actually saying? So I think
I have to do something important.
Okay, right. You look.
I don't know how to see this properly. Anyway, so I don't know. I haven't seen Django. Or maybe I have seen it. But the point is, if you take my view that all artists should have the right to give expression to their worlds as they want, which is what I kind of mostly believe.
Yeah.
Provided there's a proper sensitivity to audience. You can't make work just for yourself.
Oh.
You have to make it for an audience. So that's a difficult one, because do you make work with a cynical touch? Oh, I know if I put this rudeness in, the audience will love it. If I put that stuff in. I'm a great fan of Paul Grootboom. But what was it about his world that made him love the depictions of these perversities? Which I happen to love myself. But hard, eh?
I know. There seems to be also this...
How old are you?
You
don't want to say?
No, I think I recently turned 30.
Okay.
But
so you're still on the edge of young.
Yeah. there seems to be this nostalgic feel in the air of people who are still reminiscent of apartheid, especially white South Africans. They think that it was a great time, you know.
Well, let's be honest. I hate that.
Yeah.
Because whatever it may have delivered, it only delivered for 4 million people, not for 40 million people.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, they murdered people, they tortured people, they slaughtered people, they burnt people. They you know all that story.
Yeah.
And they sent people in their droves into exile because that's the only way to survive. So it doesn't matter what we say, and it doesn't matter how we view the present. It's 1,000 times better than what was before. The great crisis of this country is the great brilliances, the great thinkers of the ANC and the revolutionaries came to power, and they could not avoid the funonist trap.
Yeah.
Put your nose in the trough and don't stop anybody from doing it. So they've killed themselves. The ANC, as we know, is losing rapidly, and it's very clear why.
Yeah.
You know, the famous Zuma years. I mean, even now, the whole story about the police and what they do and don't do.
Yeah.
I mean, so great material for art.
Of
perhaps.
course. I was actually asking you this because I wanted to say that I love the fact that shows like Sophia Town can still be played in different theaters, because I think we somehow need more of that, because I'm realizing that as we progress to the future, there seems to be this amnesia where we want to forget, you know, everybody saying that we should forget. The same thing that is happening in the United States of America. They want black people to like literally forget. It's like so many years ago, you know. Yeah.
But here's the point, though. We have to, in some ways, forget the past to make the future. And I say that carefully.
Yeah.
Because we cannot be trapped in the state of being. Not the thinking, but the state of being.
Yeah.
You cannot be a yabas and move forward. So we have to shake off some of the past.
Yeah.
However, we also have to acknowledge that these plays from the Greeks, 2,500 years old, are still playing today. They've been modified, the language has changed, but they still have enormous power.
Yeah.
And the adaptations have enormous power. Shakespeare, whatever we may think in Southern Africa, still playing 400 years later. And why shouldn't they? So why should we not now recognize that the great plays of Fugard, from the Blood Knot onwards, the good plays, I won't say great, but one of them might be great, on Junction Avenue, are still there. We've got, Paul Slab's productions from way back, Barney Simon's.
Yeah.
We have to accept that we do have a theatre tradition, and it's famous all over the world, and we should honor it, but it should not prevent us from making the new paths. How?
That makes sense.
How?
Yes, the question is how. Are we throwing that to the creatives?
Well, I saw the one-person show about fathers at the market. Did you see it? I don't remember what it's called. It was a poem.
I think it was Fatherhood.
No, it was the one-person one, eh? We had a musician on the stage as well.
Oh, I think it was
probably production.
Yeah, theatre duo. It was by Modise Sekgote.
Okay, whatever it was.
Yeah,
that's a powerful indicator
that was a beautiful piece.
Of where we could be going. And I suppose Bobby Rodwell's writing of that play about Lumumba.
Yeah, the one with Lesego Rampoloke.
Yeah. Also, I think very powerful. Some people hate it, but that's their problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's that which I call fresh. Our job is to make fresh theatre.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Makes sense. Malcolm,
are you running out of time?
Yeah, we actually left with a minute. I wanted to ask you.
You've got to be kidding. We haven't even started.
I told you that this time right fast. I wanted to ask you a very quick question. The incorporation of music into Sophia Town, how did that come about? Because I found a beautiful playlist under your company. Let me just get it right.
On the world.
What is it called? The company's name?
Junction Avenue Theatre Company.
Yeah.
No, listen. When we were making Randall's and Rotgut, a famous local director came to us and said, "You've got to turn this into a sort of a musical or an opera." And so we did start developing songs. And the great developer of songs is Arthur Molepo. So Sophia Town, we always knew from that point on, whether it was Marabi or most of the bigger works, they have to have music. Music is a genius of communication. It's the best. It's the wonder of the world. And I have to say, at the moment, I'm thinking that theatre's in the earth and music's in the sky.
I love it.
And I favor the sky.
Yeah.
Which means that at the moment, I'm not that interested in theatre anymore.
What's next for Malcolm besides retirement?
Funny enough, I'm working on a one-person show that's very provocative, based on my experiences working on a big project in America, where I was in Baltimore with a university, and a kind of project that sold out there but can't play here because the material is too fancy and too complicated, too fragmented, and too non-linear.
No, we love it here in South Africa. I trust South African audience.
No, not that one.
Please bring it. Malcolm, it's been a great pleasure. Have you been to Sophia Town or Meadowlands recently?
Well, in fact, I drove through there the other day, and I said to someone who was with me, "Look, this is Kobe Street and Good Street and Gold Street are all down the road here." So yes, I often go through there because I live in Melville, and I go to the West Dean hardware store, the whatever it's called, in Sophia Town, actually.
Yeah. From the rest of South Africa, I'm giving you your metaphorical flowers. Thank you so much, Malcolm, for
it was lovely to be here, and I can't believe that we've run out of time.
Yeah.
I've only just begun.
Then you'll come back anytime you want to come back and continue this conversation, you'll hit me up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mokhaitsu, this was renowned theatre maker. We didn't even get to talk about some of the beautiful films that he has made, but I'm pretty sure that there'll be a part 2. My name is SirGift, and this was the Ink in Think podcast. Thank you.